Sandra Frayne, thank you for joining us today. I'll keep this brief. You're part of a bigger lecture that I'm currently giving. Sandra Frayne is joining us from her car, just currently up in Byron. She is a community and biodynamic expert I've had the pleasure to have involvement with over the 8 years through our children's schooling at Glennie Steiner School. Sandra, I wanted to ask you a few questions. We've got a lot of people in this room, about 100, looking at the UN SDGs and looking at many cities around the world. Each student has chosen different ones, and what the case of that may be by about 2050, and using AI to help us look at some of those problems and try and solve them. What I wanted to have a conversation with you about was your work with community, how you place biodynamics. Partly also, I'm just reading off a WhatsApp comment from somebody else that I was on this morning about you, and they mentioned you, Sandra, as the warmth of dirt, realness and community. And I think whilst we're dealing with AI in the room, I think those qualities become even more important for students to be considering. So I wonder if we could have a little talk with you about the role of community in making change. Perhaps tell us a little bit about you, what you've been doing.
Wow. Thank you very much, Patrick, for such an invitation. I'm so honored to be working with you and 100 other people in the room from different parts of the world who are studying and wanting to make a difference. And I think, Patrick, that at the end of the day, that's what we each have ourselves to get invigorated, to get out there and do something to help our world. So whatever has helped your students to sign up to do this course and to say, oh, we have another tool, we have AI, not just our own brains and each other's, or not just our own experiences, but something that can pull all that together and make something new. Isn't that a wonderful thing, Patrick?
It sure is. Hey, Sandra, I've got a few direct questions. How can a school act as a small model of a sustainable city, integrating gardens, water, waste, and energy cycles? How do you like that question?
Oh, thank you very much. Well, Patrick, when I first came to Sydney to work with the Glennie Steiner School, it was to make compost, to make soil, and to make it the biodynamic way. And that is a way where we are knowing what our quantities are of our different substances, such as nitrogen and carbon. And we know that we must have water. There is no chemistry without water. We must have heat. The sun brings heat. And when we bring all matter together, things can warm up in that space. When all the little animals come from wherever they do, it's like a magic that all of a sudden, where did those sow bugs come from, or those worms, or those whatever? And the compost heap is filled with this teeming life. And of course, we have the earth, the cool earth that has so much life in it, unseen to us because we cannot see the gazillions of little organisms, microorganisms that are alive, and then all the things that we can see that I've already mentioned. And there is this abundance of those elements coming together of earth, water, air, and fire. And if we imagine that we teach a community, how can they use their household scraps? How can they use all that stuff that goes off to recycling to make soil, all that cardboard I'm talking about, and leaves and paper, and to make that, put that together with the waste from the kitchen and let it sit in a container or in a heap in a backyard, or could be in a bin on a balcony. We are bringing a consciousness that we can be looking after our own refuse, our own waste, in a way that then brings this new life of soil. And so many people feel when they go through this process of learning how to make soil, they feel, I know how to do this. I can make a difference. It's not that hard. And with that, they're empowered to carry on and do what they can within their own space. So the making soil is one thing. what we have done in the gardens too is to make sure we've got water space that children can play in. They can bend down and they can look for fish, and they can feel the water plants that are there, and they can learn of the concept that in many of our urban spaces, we are very short of shade. And so they can learn, well, of course, because the trees have been cut down wherever we are, literally shut down. And so we have in our garden spaces at Glennean Steiner School, we've made an oasis, a place where we've planted trees, we've dug a hole, we've put in a pond, and this has brought the children to this consciousness that they can create ecosystems themselves. So now we have made a mountain, which is our compost heap of soil. Now we have made a depression into the soil and filled with water to create a habitat for birds, for dragonflies, for bees, for our children to come together in. And those are two such examples, Patrick.
Sandra, they're beautiful examples. Now, I know we won't have enough time to talk more deeply into many things here, but I know your work here in Sydney, but I also know you've been doing some community work up, and correct me, sort of Southeast Asia somewhere. Many students in this room have been looking at cities in Asia, but also at the role of women and equity. I don't know, have you got any comments or any observations from working with communities about equity among girls, particularly, and biodynamic?
Oh, yes. Well, I think one thing is for us to make the opportunity available so that they have that opportunity to push a wheelbarrow, to pull a wagon, to dig in a hill, or into the soil, to make a hill, to make a pit, to make a hill, to be able to use a pitchfork to move grasses or things like that. So that first thing is that we are looking at the genders equally, and that we as leaders are, and that by the same token with boys, that they are having an opportunity to harvest flowers, and they are having an opportunity to make a flower arrangement. And this, to me, is bringing this balance of the male and female that is inside each of us to the outside. And when we see each other doing these different tasks, then we accept it as something that we could be inspired to do, and that in fact is acceptable to do, and that we can be an inspiration to others. And definitely with biodynamic farming and gardening, there is a gentleness that is toward and a respect toward our nature, that we're not operating as getting the most out of a commodity, but it is, what story do you tell as a plant or as an animal or as a tree or as each other? What do you need? That Parsifal question, what ails you? What do you need? How can I help? That this, from that caring point of view, and biodynamics is about healing the earth, not just sustaining it, but healing it. That this, I think, is a very attractive principle as a way of working with agriculture that biodynamics offers, and it has many women leaders all over the world that are doing incredible initiatives, seed saving in India. When you speak of other countries, there's biodynamic farm outside Beijing that is run by a woman. In Australia, in Adelaide, the Paris Creek Farms that was set up by a woman, and a woman immigrant from Switzerland. And so we have these examples to look at. And I think that's in part, how do we do that for our girls? And how do we do it for our boys, that they can see we may not be as muscularly strong, but somebody's got to push that wheelbarrow. And sometimes there isn't a man around to do it, or a man who wants to do it. And we can develop our own muscles there instead of having to go to the gym or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Many students are looking at cities that are very impoverished at the moment, with visions of how to help pull them out of that in the next 30 years. Do you have any vision for schools like Glennean, how they could help shift towards regeneration or community-based education over the next 3 decades?
Wow. Well, Patrick, if we could accomplish even in the next 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years, that every angle, every aspect, every space of the school is looked at with that question, how can I help with our issue of energy or regeneration? And that we actually get all the food from the school that is being composted to make soil, all the paper that is so, and that there is a consciousness that is being taught, not just in values as an exercise, but is actually being practiced. I think that would go a long way in what could the future look like in a number of decades.
And you think start
and
young?
That takes the management. Sorry, it's the starting young, yes, but I also feel it does need to come from our elders, our management, our boards, our teachers, the number of people who, when they hit high school, all of a sudden are too busy to engage in something like composting or recycling, seems a tragic sort of an ending to many years of children being taught by early childhood and primary teachers that they must look after this waste. So I think there's this divide that if we're engaged in intellectual pursuits, we actually haven't got time for those lowly pursuits of the earth and rubbish. And if we consider that actually that is a gift to us to be being responsible for our very own waste, then there is a different consciousness, and that we can feel in the marvel of making soil and making a garden for our own spaces. And I'm thinking also the gray waste, like our sewage, there's a cruise ship, when we're talking cities, there's a cruise ship, which are like mini cities, at least 3,000 people on them at a time, that are doing their very own composting and doing a kind of a toilet flushing system that uses 1 liter of water instead of 6 liters of water. So looking as an example, there are the examples of the rural communities where they have a relationship with cows, that they know how healthful the manure is for as an antibiotic, as a nutritional substance, antibiotic for the floor, or antiseptic, to put on the floor, antiseptic and nutritional to put on trees. And of course, it's also used as fuel, and it's used as a building product and all those things. Those ideas come from the villages. The ideas such as this, flushing water for plumbing and that sort of thing, that has to come from the urban centers where it is a paramount thing to be flushing toilets for millions of people every single day. And I think that is a place, when you speak of AI, that there could be some extraordinary turnarounds of us being able to be using our own human waste in a better way than we do. And some people using fuel from the cooking industry to be able to fuel their cars. There are some wonderful examples. So for those initiatives to be supported and to be encouraged in the schools for students to be perhaps inventing things like that themselves, or being supported to, like what you're teaching, Patrick. This is a brilliant opportunity for everyone to think outside of their regular thinking space. And also, I think of these the chats that we share that are boosting up of people. There's no criticism. Everybody's ideas fair game, and we work together to create pictures of what are these different things that we may not have known about until we introduce them to each other. So this is a kind of egalitarianism that I think our cities, our world needs so very badly, so that we see that from the lowliest we can have the most extraordinary ideas, and from the most extraordinary people who have the extraordinary capacities, they have the gift to be learning with us how to use these things to help the world.
Beautiful. You say that very beautifully, Sandra. I'll close this off in a minute, but it does strike in me. I'm quite interested in the word agency and people having agency and taking agency as part of steps forward and solution. Have you got any examples that you've experienced where you've seen a community or maybe a group of people something sort of taking agency in any communities you've worked with?
Oh, very much so, Patrick. I'm thinking I was recently in December in Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam, and the Steiner School there has really taken on the initiative of having a gardening program, composting program. They hosted a workshop that I was the leader of to bring people together from all over Vietnam, and the children were all part of this and could see what we were doing. And all of those people who were there have gone back to their villages and are feeling this. They had grown up with this attitude that farmers are the lowliest and that they should learn how to be a lawyer or a doctor or an accountant. And to get their hands back into the soil and into these substances help them to see that they have got other gifts to give to the world in bringing these together. So Vietnam is just one example. There are extraordinary things going on all over the world, and I'm sure that some of your students, wherever they are, they have something to teach. And I know when I worked in China, we had one man said, oh, in my village, we dug a pit for our compost, heap. It was like a heap below ground. And I said, well, I haven't done that. I learned in my training in New York, it was above ground. That's the North American way to do it. So we did an experiment. We did one under and we did one over, and both had the same beautiful soil at the end of it. And then we brought that to Glen Ian, that we knew we could, for all the people who love to make a pit, they can do that, and then there's a heap with it. And so we're learning something from each other, whether we're from a town or a village or a city, a school, a farm. It's the coming together, Patrick. And that's what you're doing with your courses, bringing people together to share and to know that they are going to come away with how they can make the world a better place.
I like it. Sandra Fain, I'm going to have to end it, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Patrick, for your time, and all the best to your students. Thank you very much for having me, Patrick.
Okay.
Have a wonderful day. Oh, thank you.